like the way that my dad's memorial service was carried out. And so every time I'd run into one of Brad's friends, he would always say, man, I would always remember Brad started saying with my buddy Sean, and every time Brad would talk to me, he'd say, you know, my buddy Clint this. So everyone that knew Brad had a story, and that's what we're going to do here today, is we're going to tell a story about Brad. And so if you notice, these koozies say, let me tell you a story about my buddy Brad, and that's what we're going to do today. So we're going to start off with Brother Francis Bork, and he's going to talk for a little while, and then we're going to play a song, and then I want you guys to overcome your fear of public speaking today for Brad. Because I know everyone has a story. It could be a funny story. It could be a story where Brad helped you. I know each and every one of you have an air conditioner. And if your air conditioner went out, you were calling Brad. Because I know I did. So let's just do this for Brad today.
Thank you all for coming. I wanted to thank Chris for
there you go.
like that. It's a simple little occasion, man. I was born before electricity, so this is new to me. But Chris got a hold of me Thursday and asked me if I wouldn't mind sharing a little bit. I go back a few years with Brian, even though we have a pretty good age difference. We had a connection, and we had some good times in that together. And I got to meet Brad when he was 10 years old. I'm a member of Family Life Christian Fellowship from Dulles, and him and his mom were coming to church, and I got to meet him then, and fellowship with him. Always had an infectious smile, and he just loved people, loved life, even as a young child. You know, he just connected. And I worked at the post office, and I worked with Chris's dad. My young son worked with Chris's dad, which I retired since then, and my son's still working there. And anyway, when I retired, I was kind of got a little part-time job playing around at Family Life a little bit, doing driveways and you call, we haul kind of stuff. And my son and I had a duck blind by Catahoula. And one day Chris drove up. He had got into the gutter business, doing gutters and that. And I said, Chris, you want to come hunting? Man, we hunting. We got a lot of snipe and that. We can. Yeah, he said, I'm going to bring Brad with me. So he brought Brad, and more people we had, the more people would have worked, walking through them rice fields, all kind of wet, damp, and all that. And man, he took on to that, and he was a very good wing shot. You could see him way out, man. He'd shoot them birds that fall, and he got hooked up. So we started hunting and back and forth, and then him and Chris started hunting geese. And so one day when we were hunting sniping, they had at that time they quit trapping nutria because they couldn't sell the pelts in that anymore. So they had to hire somebody to come and trap the nutria so they could, they would quit digging holes in the levees, letting the water out and all kind of stuff. So I was telling Brian, I said, man, I sure had to get me a couple of them nutria. I said, that's good eating. He said, you eat that, Mr. Man? I said, if I eat it, man, let me tell you. He said, well, how you cook that? I said, well, it's not bad. You can cook them. You got to get the tender ones. I said, you put them on the pit and you cook them. I said, when you skin them, you got to leave the tails on. I said, well, why you got to leave the tails on? I said, well, it's a barrel pit. You put about 4 of them, and then you close the lid and you leave the tails off. And then, but I said, you can't open the lid because they got to cook till it's tender. He said, how you turn them? I said, you use them tails. And you just go turn them all over. And he was looking at me like that, you know. Well, he said, how can you tell when they're done? I said, when the tail falls off, they're done. So you can open it up. Well, I mean, we just had a young boy and an old dude like me, you know, an old Cajun dude with. We just had some great times with that hunting, and then later on, as he got older, graduated from high school, he was helping Chris with the gutters. And my daughter and son-in-law moved next door at the house. And Chris came and put the gutters. Man, it was kind of like a day like today. It was in the morning, 10, 11 o'clock. Hot, the humidity. Looked like you could have just wrung out the atmosphere. It was so hot. So I came and talked to them a little bit, man. They were sweating and all that. I said, Chris, man, that retired life, that ain't too good. I ain't got enough to do, you know. So I'm going to have to try to find me a little part-time or 2 part-time jobs, something to keep me busy so I can sleep good at night. And he said, what you thinking I'm doing? Well, I was looking at maybe doing blacktop work in the morning from about 8 to 12, you know, when they follow them blacktop trucks and go out there and that hot asphalt lay there. And I said, take a little hour lunch break, and after that, do a little roofing till about 6 o'clock. Then that ought to finish out the day. So I just turned around and left and went home. And after I left, he turned to Chris and said, that man got to be crazy. But, you know, they was all sweating and all that. So we had some great times, and he invited us to the wedding. I went to the wedding. That's most probably the last time that I got to see him in that, but I had kept up. He was doing air conditioning work, doing good. But even the times in that we spent together, I could just see that he loved life. He loved people. He loved his family. And he just enjoyed living. He enjoyed living the life that God created us to live. And as I started, I said I met Brad when he was 10 years old. I had a little foundational class at church that I taught for 10 weeks. It was called The Hungry Hearts for New Beginners at church. When he would come, and his mother Judy had signed up, and she brought Brad. He was 10 years old. 10 weeks. We'd start at 9 to 10, then we'd go to church from 10 to 12. And he came through all the 10 weeks. His mom didn't have to drag him. You could tell he was just absorbing this. He wanted to know more about God. He wanted to learn more about God. And we just started connecting with him and I and that together. And I firmly believe that we had something in common that connected us, and that something in common was life in Jesus Christ. I had the opportunity and the privilege of introducing him to Christ, introducing him to the abundant life, to the eternal life. You know, life is fragile. I just turned 81 Friday. God has blessed me tremendously with long life. For what reason, I don't know, but He's kept me here for a purpose. And it was just a privilege to introduce this young man to God and to His ways, to His life. And I think that had an effect on the way he looked at life and viewed life. And even as good as this life gets, they got a better life after this one. And it's been promised to us that God even sent His Son, that He would not only show us the way, but He would be the way. And we can spend eternity with Him the way He created us to be. So, as we celebrate Brad's life today, enjoy life. Enjoy your family. We just don't know how long we're going to be with them. Enjoy the time that you have with them, because trust me, it goes by fast. And get right with God. If you're not right with God, if you're not seeking, because the Sermon on the Mount, the main topic was seek first His kingdom, and He's going to give you eternal life, a life worth living, a life worth living for your family and your friends. thank y'all for coming. Thank you, Chris, for inviting me. It's just a blessing, man, that I even got to be part of Brad's life. How we connected, a young man in an old food like me, that's God. So I just want to thank y'all for coming and celebrate life and live life to the fullest. That's what God intended us for us to have. Who's the next one that's going to be?
So back when I was in college, my name's Ryan, by the way, and when I was in college, Brad and his friends would always come to my band shows, and they always made it a lot of fun because they would do two things. They would sing all of the words, and they would drink. And they would sing some more and drink some more. So it was always a great time. I'll always remember that. So we're gonna play a song. I understand this song meant a lot to him, so. Mama told me when I was young, come sit beside me, my only son, and listen closely to what I say, and if you do this, it'll help you some sunny day. Take your time, don't live too fast. Troubles will come and they will pass. You'll find a woman and you'll find love, and don't forget there is someone up above. And be simple. Thank you, Brad.
My story with Brad. I met Brad in 2009. We are of no relation, contrary to what a lot of people in you have told me. We have no relation. And in fact, when Brad was at my dad's memorial service, people kept walking up to him. It's like, man, I'm so sorry for your loss. And he just looks around. He's like, I'm not Sean. So anyway, my name is Sean. Like I said, I met Brad in 2009. I actually taught Brad how to fly. He came to him and he said, I got the bug. I want to do it. And so I started working with him, and soon after that, he got his pilot's license. And you could just tell when he met Brad, there was no stopping him. He wasn't going to be denied. And so he was actually one of the best people I'd ever trained. And some of the stories that stick out, I remember when Amanda said, we wanted to tell stories, I had to sit there and go through stories that could be told in front of children. There's 80% gone. And so a couple of them stick out. On paper, me and Brad would seem like we weren't friends. And I can't necessarily say that Brad is my best friend because that'll offend at least 10 of you in here. And so, for instance, I don't fish. I had to go buy this shirt yesterday. I felt like such a poser standing here. I was like, I guess this is what I should wear. I don't hunt. And the funniest thing is my oldest brother's a taxidermist. I don't cook. I learned how to brown sausage yesterday for the first time. He actually taught me. That's actually my real brother, by the way. I despise manual labor. If I'm sweating, I'm not a very happy person. So all of these things are just polar opposites of who Brad was. But there's one thing that we shared in common, is that we flew. We like to fly airplanes, we just like to do it. And so during Brad's training, we had to go and we had to do a trip where we had to fly a certain amount of miles and come back. It's called a cross country. So we were flying back, and it was in the middle of the summer, and a giant thunderstorm just came over Lafayette. And so we decided to stop in Opelousas. And it's got to be really bad weather to stop in Opelousas. It's got to be, it's got to be bad. So we stopped in Opelousas, and we knew that we were going to be there for at least an hour. And so we got out, we went inside the little terminal building, and we decided to get some snacks. So Brad got potato chips, and I got peanut M&Ms. And there's a little lounge area with some recliners, and so we started watching TV. Somehow we got on Animal Planet, and we started watching this thing about panda bears. And this panda was just sitting there leaned up against a log. He had a pile of bamboo on his stomach. And we were just like, man, that's the life. This dude, he has no worries. He just sits in the zoo, eats his bamboo. And he's like, yeah, that would be nice. And so we're both sitting in these recliners, and we look at each other at the exact same moment. I have my peanut M&Ms spilled all over my stomach, and Brad's got his potato chips spilled all over his stomach. And so from then on, we just kind of had this running joke about panda bears, to the point we had talked about traveling to China to go sit with the panda bears, because there's a giant panda sanctuary over there. But it started getting worse and worse. It got to the point where it started annoying Amanda. And so when we would be flying in the same area and we'd hear each other on the radio, we would just say something, we would just say panda. And so it was just quick enough where you knew who it was, but it wasn't enough to make anybody upset. Until one day. So I'm flying and I hear Brad, and I think he was coming out of his little strip and broke bread, and I just said, hey Brad. And he comes back with the most Cajun coon-ass accent. He's like, you know what's nice about them pandas? They black and they white, so everybody loves them. So, this was transmitted all the way from Lake Charles to New Orleans, probably up to around Shreveport. All while Lafayette's trying to land a bunch of airliners, PHIs flying around. And I sat there for a second because the FCC actually monitors these radios, and they can find me for doing things like this. And you just hear the controller and they're like, can we stop it with the panda stuff? So it's just been always a running joke. My wife, when we got married, she did all this Pinterest research, and she wanted to have this beautiful picture of our engagement. and this nice border where everyone comes and sign it. Similar to that propeller out there. Brad drew a panda bear on it. I drew a panda bear on his. So the last story I'll tell you about Brad and his determination is shortly before he got his pilot's license, he came up to me. He said, we're going on our honeymoon. It was right before him and Amanda got married. And he said, I want to fly to catch your airliner. All right, where are you going? He's like, I need to go to Houston. And I don't know if you've seen Brad's airplanes, but they're quite small. And so he's like, I'm going to fly to Houston. I was like, you know how big that airport is? He's like, I'll just call him up, and I'll just tell him I'm coming in the land. It's just like Lafayette, right? Yeah, it's just like Lafayette. Go knock yourself out. And so he leaves that morning, and it takes him like 5 hours to get out there. But he calls me. He's like, man, that's a big airport. I was like, yeah, it's number 7 in the world. And so he's like, I got lost like 3 or 4 times. And I think I made them really, really mad. I was like, yeah, that's probably true. He's like, at one point they just said, just follow the airplane in front of you and we'll let you know when we need you to turn. And so he would just get lost behind these giant Boeing airliners, and he's in this little bitty Mazda Miata of freaking airplanes. And that was Brad. Brad was a really determined person. And so it just, I can't say enough about Brad. I've known him for years. We became really good friends with my brother, and it is what it is. But I want today to not be the mourning of a loss, but the celebration of a life. Because he had a life. This man, he was 34 years old, but he lived a life with people who were 70 and never experienced what Brad had experienced. He touched all of you in some way or another. Like I said, all of you have an air conditioner. If it broke, we're gonna call Brad. And he's gonna figure it out and hopefully give me a deal on it. But that's just who Brad was. So I want everybody to overcome their fear of talking in front of strangers. Because I don't know very many of you guys. I only knew Brad in a small segment of his life, which was aviation. I don't know the hunting camp Brad. I don't know the fishing Brad. I don't know the band Brad. But I want to. I want to hear these stories. And so today is your opportunity to show us who Brad was to you. So I urge you to come up here and give it a shot.
I get to follow that. That's awesome. No, I want to add a little color to that Houston story. I thought you were going to go there, but so Brad always told me that story. He got in line. There was like 9 planes in front of him, and he's in his little Cessna, Mazda Miata with wings, and he gets up there, and he is full throttle. And he's not moving, just from the wash from the plane in front of him. And that plane ain't going anywhere. He opens his window, and he starts acting like he's rowing a boat. And the pilots start cracking up at him just because they're like, what is this dude even doing? But like you said, that's the determination of Brad. And forever from now on, it is no longer the 7 degrees of separation of Kevin Bacon. It is the 4 degrees of separation of Brad Lafleur. Because everyone in here, I guarantee, has a story that will relate to someone else in here and you don't even know that person. So that's phenomenal. I've known Brad longer than anybody else in my entire life that's not blood related. I met him in kindergarten, and I don't know probably 80% of the people in this room. And that's just amazing. And that speaks to the love that Brad gave, the energy he put out, and all of that is coming back tenfold. And I know that family sitting right there is going to need that in the coming weeks and days. But we're going to give it, and y'all ain't getting rid of us that easy. We're going to be there for you guys, all right? So instead of telling the story, I just want to read what I posted, and hopefully I can get through it. I'm not sure if I can, but we'll try. So life has a way of throwing you curveballs. Yesterday, last weekend, it was a knuckleball right to the face. My best and oldest friend passed away. He was killed in a plane crash while training to become a banner pilot. Brad Lafleur, you had such a positive impact on my life. My thoughts are all over the place right now, and I know time will heal the pain, sadness, and anger. Instead of wallowing, I've decided to celebrate your life. I will always remember the good times in high school with drumline, bidlets, and that will forever be on me. Bidlets is best damn drumline in the state. And that is something that I will never forget, and I share that bond with every one of you guys around there. The friendships and brotherhood that were developed over these years is unbelievably profound, and I'm thankful for it. And it's something that I can only liken to the connection that military has with each other. Because the hours upon hours we spent with 40-pound drums hanging on our backs, and Scott yelling that we only had 2 minutes left to wait until we got water. His watch must have been broken because I swear we were out there for hours. But no, that amount of practice and time we put in the off season, in the middle of the season, right after the showcase, it didn't matter. We always were together and thick as thieves. All right, I will always remember the trip to Pensacola that we took with our wives. We all got sunburns the first day and were miserable the rest of the trip. But man, how cool was the view of the Blue Angels flying directly over us for their practice run. And maybe leaving the island the day of the air show to go to the museum wasn't the best idea, considering the 45-minute detour we had to take to get back, because there was probably 100,000 people trying to get onto the island, and we were going the opposite direction. And we missed half the show on the way back, but it was all right because we were together. I'll always remember the countless fishing trips either I attended or listened to stories about. Ripping lips. The time we lived it out on redfish in 20 minutes. And then Joey Aloisio, I'm totally blaming that on you. I'm not sure where you're at, but it's totally your fault for that one. We took a 25 horsepower flat bottom boat 6 miles offshore, and there's video proof of this. And then Brad foul hooked, caught a catfish. And then Joey got that on film as well. That was an unbelievable time. That will forever be my best fishing trip in my life. The time my boat almost sunk and you helped me get it back to the dock last July 4th, that was not a fun night, but Brad was there. And that was not Brad's fault, by the way, despite what many people probably think. The time you borrowed my rollerblades so you could go on a date with Amanda, they're one of their first dates. So the way I see it, I'm directly responsible for your entire relationship. The hours we practiced aquamarine at our house in middle school and the Superior we got at Solo Fest. The time we played hockey at my house and I convinced you to play goalie with almost no proper equipment and I managed to hit you right in the ankle with the puck. I'm seriously sorry about that one. To this day, he still had a dent in his shin for that. The trip to Brownsville, where we got to meet our alter egos, John Vatican, Paul Wyman, and George Landry. Because that was our middle name and then the street we grew up on. So Brad was John Vatican, Jeremy was George Landry, and I was Paul Wyman. So anybody we introduced ourselves to, that was it, so we couldn't be arrested. Those guys were pretty awesome. They did, however, get a bottle or a glass of vodka mixed up with water, and unfortunately I was the one who found out that it was not water. But they were awesome. Flying was in your blood. From the flight simulator we played at your parents' computer to the Cessna you literally flew out of the backyard in Roe Bridge. You never passed up an opportunity in life, truly living every day to the fullest. I make you a promise, brother. Your life and spirit will live on. I will never let your memory be forgotten. I will do my best to help your beautiful Piper understand how truly amazing her papa was. I will teach her about creamy curls and pecan spin wheels. We ate that every band practice and made an absolute wreck in the back of the band room. I will teach her the exact speed you need to reach to successfully jump a Danger Ranger over the railroad tracks. There was no video evidence of that, but I swear it happened. I will teach her that sometimes it's fun to bang on pots and pans, just like her dad. I will teach her the snare drum part and the cadence. I will teach her how to set up boards in the driveway so she can play roller hockey. I will teach her the correct way to hold her lips when she casts that rod so she can catch that fish. And then I thought of one that he taught my daughter when she was potty training. So I'm definitely going to teach Piper. But I'll leave it up to your imagination to figure out. But he taught her what a grocery snake was. So it's poo. So that will be taught to Piper. I will teach her that her dad was my best friend and I loved him like a brother. I'll make sure she understands that true friendship is a rare thing. And when you find one, never let it go. It didn't matter if it was a week or a year between our talks, we picked up right where we left off. Rest easy, my friend. Dr. Wag, tell Dr. Wag hello for us until we meet again.
So I'm Amanda's dad. Brad would call me pa-in-law to get my goat. It was all about picking between him and I. He would pick and he was good at it, but I'd dish it back too. To the point where several times he left the house, my wife was crying because I was being so mean to her son-in-law. And my family knows that's how I show my love. I pick on you guys. Brad was very special to me. My two sons have moved out of state, and Brad filled that void. He was my son who lived here. And we had some good trips. One time he came camping with us, and I have this chimney, it's called a charcoal chimney. Start charcoal with it without using fluid. And there's a wooden handle on it, and as I picked it up, it fell off. And Brad says, I can fix that. So he grabbed a screw and had a power drill, and that screw went right through the handle into his hand. And he just stood there for a while. And he called me, Mr. Greg, I got a problem. So I walk around the corner of the camper and I see Brad screwed to this. And I'm thinking, you know, okay, an emergency room, stop here, we run to Bill Platt and stitch him up or whatever. Oh, and he says no, and he grabs the handle, he rips it off. I mean, the screw was, 2 or 3 inches into his hand. He said, that's not, man. He wipes it off, and I'm not even sure he put a Band-Aid on it. And since then, Chris, I've heard some stories about his arm getting ripped, and he used super glue to close it up. I have a couple of notes. I have to apologize. I can't remember anything anymore. So I might get the facts wrong about this story, but this is funny as hell. Brad bought an airboat because it was going to be fun to have. And he took me a ride on it. It was great. And so he's hauling this thing to Lafayette on the interstate. And he's over by the Target on the overpass. And the ball on the hitch had apparently wore out, and it became disconnected. Now he had his safety chains on there, but that boat was wobbling so much it laid down on the interstate. And so he called the cops, police, and the tow truck, come help him out. And he said after about 40-45 minutes, no one was showing up. He had to do something, man. He's looking down the interstate, and these people are backed up, and he knows they're mad at him for doing something stupid. And so a couple of early guys come up, as I understand, and said, you know what, dude, this is an airboat. You can drive that thing on land. Let's upright it, put it in the back of your trailer, and gun it. So he's on the interstate with an airboat, driving that sucker, and somebody passes by and of course films it and puts it on Facebook. That says somebody's got to do something about these Cajuns driving their airboats on the interstate. They paid for that. I'm sure it's not quite right, but it was good enough. Several people have alluded that Brad belonged to all kind of clubs. He played baseball in high school. He was in the band. He hunted, fowl hunted, he deer hunted, he had his camp, he did some backpacking, and every one of you groups is represented here today. And like was said before, there's probably a lot of stories we don't know. Keep them clean with the kids here, but please, someone else come up and share a story. Thank you.
This is not the funeral that I'm used to. This is a different kind, but sad as this makes everyone happy to show up here.
A little louder.
I wasn't close to Brad a lot. I didn't grow up with him. I met him late in my life. And as I live out of state, we kept in touch very little, but we always knew that we were both, in good health and spirits. And every time I would come back into town, he would pick me up from the airport, and as soon as I get in the car, he would just pass me a beer. So thank you, Brad, for looking out for me. And he was just a consistent guy you can always call on when you needed help, and he fit right into the Duke LeChamp family. And just a lot of good memories whenever I was with him. He could cook like no one else that I knew, so I'm gonna miss that so much. If I could just get one more day with him, and that's what this is. I think everyone's here for him. It's been a hard roller coaster of a week, so just thanks everybody for showing love. And that's it. Love you, Brad. If everybody wants to wave, I'll take a picture.
My story is very short, but y'all kind of heard part of it already. I'll kind of told a little bit of it. For y'all don't know me, I own a shop, and I sold Brad a motor. And I've had 100 reasons why people don't show up for appointments. But Brad always showed up every time he called me, said he was going to the shop. And one morning he actually called me from his shop and said, "Mr. Ricky, I'm on my way right now." I said, "Okay, I'm waiting on you." Well, y'all just heard the rest of the story. I guess he couldn't make it all the way from the interstate to my shop with that damn boat. So the whole day went by, I was like, man, Brad always shows up. I never knew it was wrong. I don't remember exactly. I saw it on Facebook or the news that night that there was an airboat going down Interstate 10. So then I knew why he didn't make it. So every time I think of Brad, I always think of that story.
Hello, everybody. Can y'all hear me out there? All right. When I got the memo that the attire was fishing and things he loved to do outdoors, I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, black people don't fish, but whenever there's a cookout, we're ready to go. So yeah. All right. I met Brad, I think we started out in middle school with a band and everything, but we started playing drums in high school. I started my sophomore year and things like that. And I never had any brothers, and those guys were like the closest thing, two brothers that I ever had, ever. Me and Brad marched side by side throughout the years and things like that. But my senior year, we and I'm kind of digressing a little bit, taking it off of Brad. Didn't want to bring it on his parents because my senior year we made an honor band, and the honor band was in Mississippi. So they was like, we're gonna bring y'all there, but I gotta find a ride to get home. And I was like, damn, I can't do it. I can't. You know, my parents were working and things like that, so I really couldn't find a ride to get back home. So I told Brad, I told the guys, I was like, man, can't make it, whatever, whatnot. So then that night, right before I was about to go to bed, I got a call from Brad. And he was like, hey man, you can come, my parents are gonna bring you back home. And for that, I think about it every day. I just went to Mississippi about 2 months ago, and I passed in the front of that college, and I thought about the times when me, him, and Tommy were walking to McDonald's and we couldn't get in, so we had to walk through the drive-thru. And things like that. And, I mean, just knowing Brad, and like you say, everybody got a story, and like he'd always come to school and talk about, man, we was on the dunes and we riding on the dune. I'm like, what's a dune? You know what I'm saying? Black people don't dune, you know what I'm saying? But I mean, his stories they were always interesting and seem interesting and things like that. And he was also the reason why I always enjoy going to Pete's and get a big Pete, because he'd always talk about, man, I love Pete's and the big Pete. So just want to say, Brad, love you. Appreciate everything you ever done for me ever. Mr. and Mrs. Lafleur, I still appreciate y'all years from when y'all took me back home from that festival. I really appreciate it, and thank you.
Lafleur. My name's Brett, aka Stuck. The only person that ever called me Stuck was Mr. Brad Lafleur. I got countless stories, which I know I don't have enough time up here, of the times where Brad actually came and pulled me out the mud. Can y'all hear me? Is it better? All right. I got countless stories of Brad where he would actually come pull me out the mud because I was stuck, either in a pickup truck in the levee or in my pro drive in the basin. Frogging, fishing, just hunting, duck hunting. He was always the right guy to go with, good times, great guy to be with. One story that sticks out, I'm going to give y'all a frogging story because I don't have enough time for all the rest of them. We're frogging in a canal called the Ruiz, which I know a lot of you guys know that canal off of the GA in the Chapelai Basin. And he has these two guys with him that had worked for him. And one of these guys were with me, this other guy was with Brad. And Brad was the type of guy, when he saw a frog, if you're sitting in the front of the boat and he sees a frog, he's driving that boat into that frog and you have to catch it. So Brad's going and I'm behind him. He sees the frog, he pulls in. I see this stick hit the guy square in the forehead. Well, let me call it a log. Hits him square in the forehead, lays the guy out. Brad stands up, starts fussing at the guy. Guy gets up. It was just mass chaos. But I'm not sure, I think they ended up catching the frog. But it was just good times like that. Good guy, great guy to fish and hunt with. Love him to death. He will be missed, but he is in a better place with God. So thank y'all. Appreciate it.
Hey guys, a lot of people I don't recognize out here, but my name is Cale Boudreaux. Longtime friends with Amanda, longtime friends with Brad after high school. Me and him lived together for a few years. Countless fishing and hunting stories together. But one night, it's funny, he's talking about frogging. He said, Cale, dude, the frog's out of control in Cow Island. I said, hook up the boat, let's go. So we head out to Cow Island and we're tearing up the frogs and he sees an alligator and I could see it in his eyes. He had to do it. He jumps on this 3-foot alligator and he throws it in the boat. And it's flopping around. He said, don't worry about that thing. We'll bring it home. All right, whatever. So we limit out on frogs, get home. And the next night we do what we normally do. We cook, we have a party. And the next door neighbor, God bless her soul, that old lady, she calls the law on us. The next morning, we're cleaning up. I said, Brad, where's that alligator? He said, bro, it's still in the back of the truck. I said, man, go check it out. He goes and grabs it. He's bringing it to the backyard. I said, we gonna clean it? He says, oh no, that's the last time she calls the law on us, throws it over and throws it in the backyard.
Story. Welcome and thank you all for being here for our family. Amanda, Piper, I love you, my godchild. He was the best. And when that thing took me to the Ballstone Canal and I was fishing poles that I went with, he said, I know your daddy sent you here with that. Because the string on my poles was not strong enough to catch fish in the Ballstone Canal. And only people would send me with those poles. But I did have a pole that had that heavy line. And if it broke, it didn't matter. Brad was on the phone doing work and I'm like, Brad, help, help. Bring it here, bring it here. So he would fix my line while he was on the phone and doing a million things at one time. He made sure I was fishing and that I was happy, because that was our happy place. to y'all friends at that Boston Canal that made our lives so fun and so special, I always thank you. I thank all his friends, and I see there's so many here, and our family, who we are so strong. Amanda, I love you. Piper, that little hot mess, I don't know what I'm gonna do with that girl, but I am going to teach her, like Tommy, we're gonna teach her to fish. Now, we're not gonna catch the big fish, Brad caught, but she's gonna have to try Henderson and Lake Morton and catch brim, like those big reds and stuff Brad caught. No, we won't be, I won't be doing that. So anyway, I found a poem that I want to read to all of you. He was the best. He was, Adam, where you at? Adam. And Chris, every Christmas Eve, Brad would chaw brawl oysters for us. Chris would bring that ice chest full of oysters. We watched him crack them. And he would chaw brawl that with that Parmesan and that garlic, and my sister Missy and I were like, we're not eating that, but we did. And I'm like, Missy, we just put that on a cracker and we just swallow it, I guess. I don't know. But Missy and I did for the first time. We learned to eat chaw brawl oysters thanks to Chris and Brad. And every Christmas Eve after that, we waited for those chaw brawl oysters. And we will miss them. So, Amanda, we got to figure something out. We got to figure something out. Somebody, maybe Eddie Bro could help us out, or John. Somebody's going to have to do some chaw brawl oysters for us. We will carry that on for him. He was boiling crawfish. Oh my God. He could do it. He was a Cajun. And you know, we're from Brobridge. And oh, Brobridge, speaking of Brobridge, this shirt, Fly's Coffee House. This was a business that Brad and Amanda started in Brobridge as their, well, Brad had his air conditioning place, and then they had Brad and Amanda's Fly's Coffee House. And the name Fly comes from my dad, Peepaw, who had a nickname for all of us kids. Fly, he put Fly in a box, and Fly, when Amanda would, well, Amanda's Fly, okay, Amanda's Fly. Amanda would, as a kid, would play in a box and hop up and down, and always wanted to get out, and my daddy just somehow called her Fly. So her nickname is Fly, and she's always been Fly, and she would try to flap out of the box. So she and Brad opened up a coffee shop in Brobridge, and they named it Fly's Coffee House, and this is why I'm wearing this shirt today, in memory of Brad. So I'm gonna make it short, I'm gonna make it sweet. I love you, my girl, and I'm gonna read something that I took off of Google or whatever. It's a memory to a fisherman. Because I didn't hunt with him, but I fished with him. And my dad, as a kid, always taught me to fish, and I love to fish. So this is for Brad. It's called Gone Fishing. I've finished life's chores assigned to me, so put me on a boat headed out to sea. Please send along my fishing pole, for I've been invited to the fishing hole, where every day is a day to fish, to fill your heart with every wish. Don't worry or feel sad for me. I'm fishing with the master of the sea. We will miss each other for a while, but you will come and bring your smile. That won't be long, you will see. We're together, you and me. To all of those that think of me, be happy as I go out to sea. If others wonder why I'm missing, just tell them I'm in the Boston Canal and I'm fishing. Thank you.
Okay, so first of all, you'll know if I'm up here, it's for something really important because I'm incredibly shy. So this one's for you, Brad, and I had to share one of his craziest but not so crazy stories. I was at his house in Fairhope literally a month or two ago, and he just casually mentioned the time he fought a bobcat in his boat. And I was like, hold on, what are you talking about? You fought a bobcat in your boat? Well, he was going down the Bostone Canal, and he thought he saw like a dog hurt or something swimming in the water. So he kind of slowed down his boat and kind of curved the boat in near whatever was swimming. And this bobcat jumped in his boat. And he was in a cab boat, so he had like a front door, a back door. And so he hurried up and he ran, and I may be telling this story wrong, I'm sorry. He ran and he locked both doors, and I think he called Tommy and Luby at first, and he said, this bobcat is in my boat, I don't know what to do. And he couldn't see it, so he was like looking around, it wasn't back in the water. And so he opened the front door and he looked, the bobcat wasn't there. And so he opens the back door, and he has a video of it on his phone where he slowly opened the back door of the cab boat, and there's the like cab boat, the cat just like sitting there staring at him and hissing at him. So he got a gaff, is that what it's called, a gaff? And he got the door of this cat, and he's beating this cat on the side of the boat trying to get it off, and they can't. This is actually inappropriate, I'm sorry, I just thought about it. Anyway, so he calls one of his friends as he's pulling up to his camp, and so he goes around the other side, and there's a video of this too, where he's standing on top of his cat boat, and he calls his friend and gets a shotgun. And anyways, he shot this boat in his boat, this cat in his boat, and he had told me about it, and he told me he used some other guy to get it taxidermied, and he hadn't picked it up yet, so the minute everything happened, all I thought about was like all the crazy, he's an ultimate Cajun, and just the crazy stories that we would have to tell about him for the rest of our lives. And even he was like, I have to have this freaking bobcat in my house because I just want to think of this stupid story that Brad had. And that was just like a normal day. That wasn't like, to me it's hilarious, but it's just a normal day for Brad. And so, yeah, I just wanted to remember all the crazy things about Brad. And so that's it. Thank you.
First thing I want to tell everybody is look around, and this is a tribute to Brad's life. It's amazing. It's a celebration of his life. I've only known Brad for 5 years, and he was actually my direct supervisor at work, so I'm 24 years older than him, and he's my boss, and he was an awesome fellow. But my two memories I have of Brad, I'm a much better public drinker than public speaker. But anyway, my two memories of Brad are, I used to have to go down to Venice to call on heliports. Brad, being my boss, having an airplane, says, everybody calls me Monkey by the way, he's like, Monkey, I think I'm just gonna fly into the closest field and you come pick me up. So I have to drive 4.5 hours to Venice. Brad flies in 45 minutes and says, come get me. So I go pick him up 20 miles from Venice. We go do our sales calls. And then in the meantime, I learned where to fish on the side of the road after work's over, because there's nothing else to do in Venice. So Brad says, I want to go with you. I said, I have an extra pole. So we go fishing on the side of the road. Now, this road in Venice is as wide as this stage. And then there's rocks and marsh and swamp on both sides. But about every mile underneath the highway are drains, so you have current going through, which allows bait to go through so you can catch fish. So anyway, me and Brad are fishing, let's say on this drain, we're both fishing, and nothing's happening. So I walk across the street on this side, and I'm fishing, and all of a sudden I turn around, and Brad's gone. I mean, this is a highway with rocks and water. So I'm looking, I'm like, where the hell did he disappear to? All of a sudden, Brad stands up, his hat is sideways, and he's soaking wet. He fell off of a shoulder of a highway into the water. And I mean, I'm crying laughing. And he says, Monkey, if you tell anybody, I'm firing you. So, anyway, that was my first memory of me and Brad's fishing trip. The next one is Tommy Louviere, myself and Brad are going to Brad's camp on the Boston to blow in insulation. So Tommy and I take the gator tail. Brad takes the cab boat, which obviously attracts bobcats. And he, for some reason, I don't remember what it was, Tommy might remember, but he had to turn around. We were in that boat, Brad was probably loaded down with material. That was it. So anyway, Brad forgot something, I don't know, but he has to go back to the landing. So me and Tommy are at the camp, we're waiting for him at the dock, and Brad shows up. Once again, his hat is crooked, and his eyes are that big. And I mean, he was disheveled. And we were like, Brad, what happened? He said, if y'all repeat this story, I swear I'm gonna kill you. But there was a tug pushing a barge, and Brad was going over the wake. So to go over the wake, he guns the boat. But Brad had been saying, I need to screw down my seat that I drive in. When he gunned it, the seat goes back, Brad falls back and rolls all the way to the back of the cab boat. Now he has to get up because the boat's gunned and there's a barge. He gets up, he grabs his steering wheel, and he, I mean literally his hat is crooked again, his eyes are that big, and he says, I see the tugboat driver laughing is behind him. And Brad was like, John, monkey, do not tell anybody. And then my last story about Brad, well, life is about making memories. I mean, we've all lived lives, we all have fun, we do great things, but it's the stories you repeat that you'll never forget, and those are two I'll never forget about Brad. And then the funny thing, another one where I know he's here and with us, is the first vehicle I ever had in my life at 18 years old was a Ford F-150 powder blue. I bought it from Mallard Well Service for $1,500. And I put probably a $1,500 stereo in it. But I blew my speakers to the song Simple Man that y'all sang today. So.
Okay, so can y'all hear me? Yeah? Hello? All right, so I'm not really the greatest storyteller in the world, but this is my first experience with Brad. And I'm originally from Texas, so at this point I had never met any Cajuns. I didn't know what y'all were all about. Y'all are fantastic, by the way, just so y'all know. So I'm on the phone with my now husband at this time, and we were just dating at that time, and I hadn't ever really heard any of his friends talk, I guess is a good way to put it. And so it's about probably 9, 10 o'clock at night, and I'm making that final phone call to my future husband, love of my life, and all I hear is, okay, for starters, who here knows Corey had a limo? Raise your hand. Yeah? Okay, all right. So, evidently he's out with his boys. I don't know if any of y'all remember this or were a part of this, but I'm on the phone with him, and I guess he pulled over the limo to talk to me on the phone, which was very sweet. Thanks, dear, wherever he is. And all of a sudden, you know, we're having a nice conversation, and all of a sudden, all I hear is, there's kids here. There's a lot of cussing, and Brad, get out of my limo, what are you doing? And all of a sudden, like, the phone kind of goes down on the floor, it's some shuffling or whatever, and he comes back on the phone, he's like, freaking Brad, he stole my limo and he's doing donuts out in the pasture. Oh! Were you there? Yeah. You were? Yes. So that was my first experience with Brad, and it was fantastic, and we're gonna really miss him. for sure. I know my husband, it's hard for him to get up here because he has a lot of fond memories, and it's just unfortunate, but we're happy he's in a better place, that's for sure. So, the end.
Okay, so I'm really nervous because I'm not a public speaker either. My name is Brittany, I'm Josh's wife. Can you hear me now? Okay. My name is Brittany, I'm Josh's wife. Brad was the best man in our wedding, the godfather of our son, and we got to enjoy a great dinner the other night that we had some great fun. I'm sure Josh has plenty of hunting and fishing memories at the boat stall and them going to Stuttgart, Arkansas, that like they did it every year for a while. But one of my memories of Brad is Amanda and I had went to a concert and we had an amazing time. And while we were at the concert, Josh and Brad were on the back patio listening to old country music, and by the time I got back home, they had fried everything. They had fried fish, they had fried sausage, like you name it, they fried it all. So that's one of my memories is Josh always telling me about how they could sit around a fire and talk forever. And one of the times they had barbecued at one of y'all's, or attempted to barbecue at one of your houses whenever y'all lived in Scott, and they had got so lost in conversation and that the charcoal burned. So they had to start over from scratch. And I know, as you said, if you have an AC, Brad's been at your house. And my memory of Josh with Brad with AC is we had came home with our newborn daughter Elise when she was first night home, and the AC was out. And my husband was so upset, like we're bringing our daughter home for the first time, and he's like, well, what do we do? And I'm like, call Brad. So we called Brad, and he got a window unit going so that we could, until they could get the part to fix it. And so we had AC for the first night home with our daughter, and the very next morning he had the part, and Brad got us going again. So we're thankful for that and that memory. So thank you.
All right. My name is Eric. I've been knowing Brad. We started in elementary school together. I worked with him whenever he started his AC business. I worked with him for 2.5 years. Me and him competed with the best. One year we did so good, we actually won a trip. Me and my wife went. Him and Amanda couldn't make it. We went to Washington, D.C. All expenses paid trip. Me and Brad busted our butts that hard that we actually won that trip. I was there through the Flies Coffee House, built the metal building house, built the landing strip. One time they had people keep passing on the four-wheelers across the landing strip. On the head laying on the back, kept passing. Called the police department, they said, oh yeah, we're gonna watch it. So one day me and Brad went out there, took some 2x4s, dug us some trenches in the ground, put us some nails through the 2x4s to where they can never pass through his headland again, to where we can make sure that we had a smooth runway. Brad was a very good guy. He would give you the shirt off his back. To you, Brad.
Hey everyone, my name's Lynette Guidry. I'm one of Amanda's friends. Kind of by default. My best friend was Lindsay growing up, and Amanda became her best friend, so by default she became my best friend. One of my best Brad stories was out on the Row Bridge during one of those famous barbecues, and I made the mistake of telling Brad that I had never rode on a tractor before. And I'm from Crowley, the rice capital. So he looked at me and he said, you gotta be joking. Gerard, here's the keys, go get that girl on a tractor. I was like, oh Lord. So we got on the air conditioning closed, I think it was a bush hog tractor, and we're just sitting there, I'm sitting on Gerard's lap, and it's 2 miles an hour. We go around, come back, get out, and he's just looking at me and he's like, wasn't it so romantic?
I look at Jordan, I was like, never, ever talk to him about date nights or get any ideas from him. And so that's one of my favorite Brad memories. And he called me Sockle-lee. I can't tell you why. So I just have to say, Sockle-lee! And I just have to say it was an honor to serve his family. Thank y'all for letting me speak.
So Brad served in my husband and I's wedding. I'm Marguerite, married to John Blanchard, and I was always around all the guys, one of the only girlfriends around for quite a while. But I was also in a sorority, and so before I had met my husband, and I was in charge of the sorority house. And so a lot of times I hear people talk about their AC units and how hardworking Brad was. Well, this is the cream of the crop of how Brad will show up, because during Rush, where you have all of the potential members come to the house to see if they want to join the sorority. Well, I get a frantic call from one of the actives saying that their AC unit had, was out. And so Eric was one of the guys that shows up. And Brad said, I don't know how they're surviving in this house right now, because we have, the room is about half the size of this room, and there's about 250 girls in this house. It was about over 200 degrees inside. About 15 girls had already, had heat, like passed out from heat exhaustion. And they're working in the attic to get this AC unit working while all the potential people are talking to the actives for a rush. And so to this day, actually a week ago, a couple of the girls in the sorority were talking on Facebook, and they all remember about this one time in Rush, how it was so hot and everybody was sweating, and all the girls could talk about this hot house that they had to go to. And the next year, Brad installed a second AC unit, and so all the girls talked about was this house that everybody froze in. And so that was how our sorority was now remembered, was the house that everyone had icicles coming down from their chin. So the hard work that he always put forward for everybody, and showed up and for us, the most dire need, he was always there no matter what, and you could always count on him to be there. I knew that without a doubt I'd call him and he'd rush right over to do what needed to be done to get it fixed. So here's to Brad.
Well, we all have countless stories of spending time with Brad. Myself with the Thibodeaus, Pongays, Joey, a few other guys. A lot of my relationship with Brad revolved around dirt bikes. We were always ripping either in my backyard, Corey's backyard, somebody's backyard. Some neighbors calling the cops. If I'd have been that same old lady, God knows. But we had a great time. And we got busted for speeding going down I-10 in my dad's truck with some 50s, which are these small kid bikes that the cop actually thought we stole it from some kids, and I was driving somebody else's truck because it wasn't under my name, but we got out of the ticket, which was pretty cool. But we had a blast going to Forest Hill over the weekends, doing different things. One of my greatest memories with Brad was when Juice, I'm not going to point him out, but Juice had a predetermined accident with a 400EX, and there was an insurance claim. So then I turn around and buy the folder from Juice, and at the time I was working at the Honda shop, so it was pretty cool, so I get to buy all the parts at cost. I'm thinking, man, I'm gonna make one heck of a profit off this bike. So we get started wrenching on it, and Brad tells me that he wants to buy it from me. I'm thinking, oh crap, I ain't gonna make no money, because he's my friend, I'm gonna have to sell it to him, which worked out perfect. And it was the most profitable bike I ever flipped, but I didn't make any money, because every night after work, Brad and I wrenched on that bike to get it running, and then we rode together all the time. Another thing that I want to talk about is how Brad had character, and y'all all know this. I remember when Brad was, he just started his AC business, and it was crazy enough, I have a folder on my computer, Brad's folder. Just so happened I was doing some graphics at the time, and I did the graphics for Fly Coffee House, and then for his AC business when we put the graphics on his truck. But anyway,
we were talking about his business and how he had an opportunity to make more money by getting people to finance their AC units. And I'm like, man, that's a heck of a deal. You make like almost $1,000 extra. He's like, but I'm not going to do it. I'm like, why? Because they're getting screwed over. They're going to pay like 30% interest on an AC unit and they go to a bank. So just the character Brad had, where he always wanted to steer people in the right direction, is something that I've always learned from him. Going to supercrosses, watching races. One year we were sitting at a motel, not a hotel, a motel, and watching this guy digging through a dumpster to get food. And we were talking about it, and Brad's like, why are we standing here? So we ran off to the grocery store and bought this guy a whole bunch of food. And just to show you what a good guy he really is, I know we're telling a bunch of funny stories, but I want to bring up that stuff just to bring out those memories. So we all love Brad, and we love your family. So.
hands for these guys. For him today. Thank you guys, y'all are the best. Y'all are his best friends. Thank you again.
Before everyone leaves and it begins surrounding, I don't know how much more we have left, but I just want to thank everyone for being here. It means still being here. Start over. It means the world to me to have everyone here, and I knew Brad was loved, but just seeing the amount of people that have showed up and the support and the help that everyone has just stepped forward, and it's so touching, and I don't even have the words to say it, but I loved him very much, and I know that you all loved him very much. And he loved his little girl, and she loved him as her papa, and I can't even express how much it means for everyone to show up. And Eugene, thank you, Sean, the drum line, you guys, cooking in the back, everyone. I will owe you for the rest of my life, and just thank you for being part of this. And Brad talked about so many people that it was just hard for me to keep track sometimes in my head about all the stories, and I wish I had a story for you guys, but it's too many to count. I don't know, just thank you, and I love you guys. It means the world to me to have everyone here, and I know he's watching us, and this is what he would have wanted. So party on and drink a few beers for him, and the margaritas were more for me, but I love you guys. Thank you.
Thank you all for coming today and expressing your love and support for Amanda, for Piper, for Ms. Judy and Amy and Chris and Wanda. We thank you all, and we know you will support us and be here for us. And he is the best. And we all want to keep him in our memory and remember him every day, because we love him to the moon and back. And I don't know all the words to say to my family, to Missy and Greg. I don't know. But he is flying high. I can promise you right now, he's flying high. He is going to remember us all. He is flying over Amanda and Piper. And, you know, that's my hot little mess. But he is flying high, and he is watching over us, and he always will. Again, thank you for your support, your love, your prayers, because that is what these two families need. Thank you again for coming. God bless you all.